Hello everyone. In the previous lecture, we saw the theory of Guna propounded by Vāmana. We saw that Vāmana holds an important position in the history of the concept of Guna, since he is the first theorist to divide the Gunas into Shabda Gunas and Artha Gunas. Shabda Gunas are the poetic merits concerning the sound, while Artha Gunas are the Gunas or poetic merits that deal with the meaning. He lists 10 Gunas under each category. According to Vāmana, Gunas are more important than Alankaras. The only function of an Alankara, according to Vāmana, is to beautify a Kavya that is already beautified by Gunas. According to Vāmana, the Vaidarbhi style, where all the 10 Gunas are found, is the best style to compose a Kavya. He also holds that just the presence of Alankara is not enough to transform a piece of writing into Kavya. According to him, Guna is the essential quality that needs to be present in all forms of Kavyas. In this class, we are going to see the theory of Guna conceptualized by two other theoreticians, namely Ānandavardhana and Pratihārenduraja. Ānandavardhana defined Guna on the basis of the mental changes effected by the evocation of rasa. According to Ānandavardhana, there are 3 identifiable mental states in the experience of rasa, namely Thridi or the softening of the heart, Dipti or the excitement, and Vikasa or the expansion of heart. Corresponding to these 3 mental states experienced by a Sahridaya, Ānandavardhana acknowledged only 3 Gunas in his Dhvanyaloka, namely Madhurya, Ojas and Prasada. The Thridi that you experience in Shringara, Hasya and Karuna rasas was termed Madhurya. The Dipti felt during Raudra, Veera and Adbhuta rasas were termed Ojas, and Prasada is the ability of a Kavya to communicate its rasas to the reader. According to Ānanda, only Madhurya and Ojas were distinctly different from each other as they were attached to particular rasas. Prasada could occur with any rasa. While describing the theory of Madhurya, Ānandavardhana disagrees with Bhāmaha's opinion that Shravyatva or the quality of being pleasing or soothing to the ear is unique to the quality called Madhurya alone. He is of the view that this is a quality that can be found in Ojas as well. Ānandavardhana's schema considers Gunas as dependent on rasas, as opposed to the letters or poetic style. Ānanda notes, whatever depends on the prominent sense, that is rasa, should be regarded as qualities or the Gunas. On the other hand, whatever resides in the non-predominant sense, like the words and their literal meanings, should be considered as ornaments or figures of speech, just like bracelets, etc. It should be noted that although Ānandavardhana reduces the number of Gunas to 3, he does not try to logically refute the theory of 10 Gunas mentioned by Bharata, Dandin and Vāmana. This is something that the later theorists like Mammada, Vishwanatha and others have taken upon themselves. Raghavan very succinctly summarizes the view of Ānandavardhana on the question of Guna in the following words. According to Raghavan, Madhurya and Ojas are the 2 main Gunas standing opposite to each other. Prasada pertains to all rasas. These 2, Madhurya and Ojas, divide rasas into 2 sets, with Shringara and Karuna on the other hand having nothing but Madhurya, and Raudra, Veera and Adbhuta on the other having nothing but Ojas. As regards the other rasas, Hasya, Bhayanaga and Bibhatsa Abhinavagupta tries to show that there is a varying proportion of Madhurya and Ojas. Hasya, being an ancillary of Shringara, also has Madhurya and Ojas in an equal degree, since it is of the form of the expansion of the heart. In Bhayanaga and Bibhatsa, the Vibhavas have Ojas and hence Ojas predominates. Ānandavardhana then proceeds to analyze the relation between Samkhadana and Guna. What is a Sankhadana? A Sankhadana is a special arrangement of words. In other words, Sankhadana is the style or texture. It is somewhat similar to what Vāmana calls Riti. The Samkhadana plays a vital role in suggesting rasas. For example, Ānandavardhana notes that in the Karuna rasa, or the aesthetic emotion of the tragic, and Vipralambha Shringara, or love in separation, the uncompounded Samkhadana is expected. On the other hand, when other rasas are being presented, such as Raudra or the fury, a texture of medium length compounds is desirable, and sometimes to express Veera rasa, even a texture of long compounds can be used. Since Samkhadana plays a vital role in suggesting rasas, do we need to assume that gunas that are dependent on rasas also depend upon Samkhadana? This is indeed a very valid question, but Ānandavardhana objects to this argument. Ānandavardhana says, when we say that Sankhadana plays an important role in suggesting the rasas, we do not mean to say that Samkhadana is always an essential component to suggest the rasas. According to Ānandavardhana, rasas can be suggested by individual words or letters as well. So, it is not correct to say that the presence of the Samkhadana is necessary to suggest rasas. So, we cannot say that the rasas are dependent upon Samkhadana, and therefore the gunas that depend upon the rasas also depend upon Samkhadana. Ananda says, but this objection does not hold, because it has been shown that rasa and the like can be suggested through phonemes and words. Or, if we admit that sentences suggest rasa and the like, we need not admit that these sentences depend by rule on any particular texture. One may thus say that the base of the qualities consists only of words, words that are untextured, that is, free to belong to any of the three textures, so long as they are accompanied by some particular suggestive meaning. According to Ānanda, the quality called prasada is particularly important. He says that it should pervade the whole poetic composition. It is necessary for all the rasas and styles. If the poetic composition is bereft of the quality of prasada, that composition will not be able to bring forth emotions like karuna and vipralambha shringara. Ānanda proclaims that the general conception is that the absence of compounds is necessary for the production of emotions like karuna and vipralambha shringara. But even the absence of compounds will be of no use in the production of rasas like vipralambha shringara and karuna if the work is devoid of prasada guna. But if the work is endowed with the quality called prasada, it will be able to suggest the aforesaid rasas even in the presence of compounds. Therefore, prasada is an unavoidable element in kavya. Let's listen to the statement of Ānanda in this respect. He says, the quality called clarity is required throughout all types of texture, for it has already been said that it is common to all the rasas and common to all the textures. If one swerves from clarity, then a texture without compounds will not suggest tragedy or love in separation. If one holds to it, even a texture of median length compounds will not fail to reveal them. So, clarity is always to be sought. We know that Ānandavardhana is particularly critical of the views of Vāmana. Ananda does not subscribe to Vāmana's notion that the presence of all the 10 gunas is necessary for an ideal kavya. So, Vāmana always prefers the Vaidarphi style where all the 10 gunas are present. But Ānandavardhana does not agree with Vāmana on this point. According to Ānanda, the gunas cannot coexist simultaneously. For example, Ojas and Madhurya could never occur at the same time. He disagreed with Vāmana on this issue. Ingalls et al. Very succinctly summarizes Ānandavardhana's position of gunas in the following words. From the time of Bharata, the critics spoke of the gunas of poetry. The early critics emphasized the qualities of sound. Later, qualities of meaning came in for their share of attention. But in all these critics, the qualities were considered virtues in themselves. Now, the Dhunyaloka reduces the 10 qualities of Bharata to 3. Madhurya or sweetness, Ojas or force, and Prasada or clarity. And Dhunyaloka regards them as virtues only insofar as they lead the audience to the rasas. This is Ānanda's position. The qualities reside in the sound and sense, but exist only for the production of the rasa. Abhinava goes even further, saying that the qualities are ultimately qualities of the rasa, of the experience itself. Their names are then applied metonymously. To the sound and the sense that bring about such an experience. The next critic that we are going to see is Namidāshu. Namidāshu is a Jain scholar and a commentator of Rudrada's Kavyalankara. In the history of gunas, Namidāshu occupies an important role, since he comes up with a rather exotic idea about the notion of guna. We get to see his theory of guna primarily in his commentary on Rudrada's Kavyalankara. In his commentary on Rudrada's Kavyalankara, Namidāshu opines that Shabda Alankaras and Artha Alankaras are artificial ornaments like bangles and pendants, while rasas are the natural gunas like Saundarya and other qualities. Thus, Namidāshu has two kinds of gunas, namely Kritrima gunas and Sahaja gunas. While the term Kritrima gunas represent qualities like ornaments or figures of speech like Upama, Sahaja gunas stand for rasas. He also mentions that Shabda Alankaras are Shabda gunas, while Artha Alankaras are Artha gunas. Pratihārenduraja is a name that we have not seen much in our discussion of Sanskrit literary theory. So, before we discuss his theory of guna, I think it is important to introduce this theoretician to you. Pratihārenduraja was a disciple of Mukula Bhatta, the author of the famous Abhida Vrittimatrika. It is generally believed that Pratihārenduraja lived in the first half of the 10th century. He has written a Lekhu Vritti or a short commentary on Utpada's Kavyalankara. This Lekhu Vritti is of particular importance because it gives a good critical glimpse not only into the theory of Utpada but also into the theoretical corpus of writers like Bhāmaha, Dandin, Vāmana, Ānandavardhana and finally Rudrada. He was very much familiar with Ānanda's theory of Dhvani and he expresses his disagreement with it. Scholars often believed that Abhinavagupta's master Bhattenduraja and Pratihārenduraja are one and the same person. But this continues to remain a conjecture. Pratihārenduraja is a follower of Vāmana on the question of guna. In his commentary on Utpada's Kavyalankara Sara Samgraha, Pratihārenduraja does not agree with Utpada's view that there is essentially no difference between gunas and alankaras. He who is aware of the idea of rasa considers rasa as the soul or Atman of Kavya. He is of the view that Guna is eternally associated with the beauty of Kavya and there is no Kavya without Gunas. He observes that a Kavya cannot look good just because of the presence of Alankara and in the absence of Guna. This does not mean that he is blindly following Vāmana. When it comes to the number of Gunas, Pratihārenduraja follows Ānandavardhana and says that there are only 3 Gunas, namely Madhurya, Ojas and Prasada. But here we also need to note the disagreement of Pratihārenduraja with Ānandavardhana on the nature of Guna. He does not subscribe to the view of Ānandavardhana that Gunas are the dharmas of rasas. He is of the view that Guna, being a dharma of Shabda and Artha, are to help and be in accordance with rasas. Following Ānandavardhana, he defines Madhurya as Ahladakatva, or the one that pleases others. Ojas is not defined as Deepti but as Gadhatha, following Vāmana. Prasada is defined in the same manner it is defined by Ānandavardhana. He is of the view that out of these 3, the most important one is none other than Prasada. The other 2 are in all Kavyas, though the proportion of these 2 will vary according to the rasas and their function is to help Prasada in delivering the rasa. The next critic that we are going to see briefly is actually Rajasekhara. Rajasekhara also follows the opinion of Ānandavardhana. In the 4th chapter of his Kavya Mimamsa, Rajasekhara talks about Gunas. He, like Ānandavardhana, argues that Gunas are only 3 in number, namely Madhurya, Ojas and Prasada. He outright rejects the position that Gunas are 5 or 10 in number. Closely related to the position of Rajasekhara is the view of Hemachandra. Like Rajasekhara, Hemachandra also follows the path of Ānandavardhana in his theory of Guna, and he opines that there are only 3 Gunas, namely Madhurya, Ojas and Prasada. Hemachandra says that of Gunas and Alankaras, the former is more important than the latter. He even goes to the extent of arguing that it is possible to have Kavyas even in the absence of Alankaras, provided they are embellished by the presence of Gunas. Particularly important is the criticism of Hemachandra against the view that Gunas result from a particular kind of reading. Hemachandra does not agree with the scholars who hold that there are 5 Gunas, which Ojas, Prasada, Madhurya, Samya and Audarya. They are of the view that these qualities arise out of Patha Dharma or a particular kind of reading. The advocates of this theory hold that the non-stop reading is Ojas, reading with stops here and there is Prasada, reading with rise and fall, perhaps in a sing-song manner, is Madhurya. Clear and perfect reading with proper pronunciation is Audarya. And reading in neither too low nor too high a pitch is Samya. These critics opine that Ojas resides in Shragadhara, etc., Prasada in Indravajra, Upendravajra, etc., Madhurya in Mandakranda, etc., Samadha resides in Shardula Vikridita, etc., and Audarya in the Vishamavruta. So, in this class we discussed the views of 3 theoreticians, namely Ānandavardhana, Namasindhu and Pratihārenduraja. We also briefly saw the view of Rajasekhara. The most important of all these 3 critics is undoubtedly Ānandavardhana. We saw that the theory of Guna taking a radical turn with Ānandavardhana reducing the number of rasas to 3, namely Madhurya, Ojas and Prasada. In the next class, we will see the theory of Guna conceptualized by Bhoja. If you have any doubts about these points we discussed in the class, please watch the video once again. Thank you.